Well, welcome everyone to our free Tuesday trainings, and thank you for being here. I have Jim Carroll in the house with me today, and we're going to be talking about doing some special things. One of the big things that I have found as I'm working with business owners is they don't understand what link building is all about and why they need that. And once I explain it to them, they go, really, I need that? Because it's kind of interesting when they finally realize what link building really is about. And today I've got Jim Carroll is going to be talking about 4 overlooked link building strategies and how to use them. And so I'm going to turn the time over to him. And so, Jim, take it away.
Well, thank you, Boyd. Let me share my screen real quick. And then let me go full screen. There you go. All right, can you see that, Boyd?
I see you. Yes, you're good to go.
Very good. Okay, well, welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us today. I'm excited to be sharing this with you. I guess it's the second episode of season 4, if I've got that right. And so Boyd asked me to talk about something very specific to SEO, and one of the mainstays of SEO and Google tends to be link building. And so we're going to kind of take a little bit of a dive into that. And what I want to accomplish today is for you guys to get a greater understanding of how Google sees link building and how to appropriately build links and show your links. So let's jump into that a little tiny bit. Of course, I'm Jim Carroll, owner and CEO of E2 Total Solutions. We are a full-service search engine optimization and marketing firm. I've been working with Boyd on many projects for many years, and we have a lot of fun and success doing all of that. I always put a slide in here like what you didn't know, and so I wanted to share a couple things about my life and a little bit about my history, so that you feel like you know me a little tiny bit better. And of course, the top upper left photo is an island in the Hawaiian chain called Lanai, and I lived on Lanai for 3 years after or during college, I guess. So that's one thing that's interesting about me. The next slide over, I very much think of myself as a citizen of the universe, and I've been to a couple of different solar eclipses, and I think they're fun and fascinating, and it really makes you feel small when you get to see something that big really happen. I've competed, I'm very competitive. I've competed in a couple of events, one of them being Paraski. That's an event where you skydive on one day and ski race the next. So that when I competed in that many years ago, I was first place in my division, which was not the pro division, but an amateur level division. And the very first year that I skydived, I actually competed and won that division. The next slide over is a bear that was walking into my garage one day when I lived up in the mountains. The next one, of course, is scuba diving. And then finally, I'm deeply spiritual, and I think the Buddha kind of displays that for me. So that's something that's meaningful to me. So let's jump into the presentation, and I wanted to talk about 4 overlooked link building tips or strategies, and so we're going to get into that. If you've got any questions, Boyd will be kind of monitoring the room today, and if something pops up, he will certainly let me know. So we'll just proceed from there. So it all kind of starts with search, and I don't want to go too much into the history of Google, but most of you people know, I talk about that frequently. It really matters in how Google was formed and how Larry and Sergey kind of brought everything together to determine that link building was by far a more appropriate strategy than popularity. At the time Google was founded, certainly MSN and AOL and all those other search people. We're using popularity as a methodology of determining value, and it wasn't really the best strategy. So link building, Larry and Sergey, the founders of Google, determined that link building was a much better strategy. So today we're going to look at a couple of things. What does an anchor link look like? Why are links important to SEO? What kind of different links are there? And should your keyword be in your link building strategy or focused in that? And then how do you create a natural flow, match a link with the content that you're linking to, or why should you, I guess is maybe a better description there. Don't try and trick your readers. Make it clear that that you have a link in that text and that it's going someplace that's relevant. And then the tip, I'm going to show you a little tip about inserting a long tail keyword into your link building strategy. And then we're going to talk more in closing about how the internal linking in text should actually work. So what do they look like? It's kind of a simplistic question, but some people surf the net all the time and don't really understand. And so links are generally colored text that it is linking to something more important. If you look down at the bottom right there, I kind of have a big graphic text right here, and you can see that the text link counter is the keyword that we're using or we're linking to. And we're going to talk about this a little tiny bit more down the road a bit, but you can actually have link counters on your site or appear in your articles or whatever, and let you know how often and how frequently you're using that. And there is an advantage to using a tool like that. But what's important is that it is a colored text and you're not being deceptive. You're being very clear to the consumer, the person that's reading your article or your blog or whatever, that this is a link and that it goes someplace else to another set of relevant text, another article, or another URL that would be beneficial to somebody that's actually reading your listing article. Okay, so the link should be there to enhance the topic. And that's not right. Okay, so there is a problem with that one. And I'm missing a little bit of content there. That's the problem that I can see. I put this together this morning and I can see that I've missed that. But, what's happening there is that we're looking for, there's the thing I can see. Okay, so the link should enhance the topic, and the whole point of that is that if you're going to create a link and follow that, then I'm missing the typo. I apologize for that, but it should enhance whatever you're talking about. And I have an example a little tiny bit later about potato chips, and we'll talk about that in a second. But do links affect your SEO? And the answer is yes, by all means. And you have to have a structure that is clear and well organized. When you're linking to other content, the search engines like Google, every other search engine wants an indication that there's a topic at the other end of that link. So you need to follow that link and have it go someplace where Google is going to be able to determine that is valuable for the consumer. And that's the whole point, is that it be valuable and that it enhances your point that you're making in your article. If and I jumped ahead a little tiny bit and talked about potato chips, but if we're going to talk about potato chips or how to make potato chips or how to make them taste better or whatever, then there needs to be an article at the end of that link that you've got inserted in your potato chip blog on how to make that happen. So when you create that link, make sure that it goes someplace that's important. So there's a couple of different types of links, and we're going to just touch on those briefly. A branded link is of course when you use something like a domain name like e2 or e2-ts.com. The URL itself can be a link, which is https e2-ts.com. And that's not always the most helpful. Usually you want to entice them a little tiny bit, and I'll talk about that in a second. The site name, when written out, like E2, total solutions, that's maybe a little bit more descriptive than E2-ts. So E2 total solutions, you know exactly where you're going to go. Where E2-ts is my website, of course, but it isn't going to really tell you. The TS isn't descriptive of a total solution. An article page as an exact matching, like SEO tips, is a good description. When I talk or when I write an article, generally I'm going to be talking about SEO tips. So if I have the link say SEO tips, that's going to be a much better description. Exact words, SEO as an anchor link is a good description. Partially matching keyword variants, those start to get, when you get a little tiny bit sketchy. Related keywords that are not a direct match, but not a keyword phrase, those get sketchy. And generic links, you should try to avoid things like click here or read more. Those are generally unhelpful or not followed as often, and can start to affect bounce rate and a variety of other things that do affect your SEO. So avoid, click here and excuse me, and for more information, read here. So, okay. So you don't want to compete with yourself, generally speaking, when you're writing or creating a link inside of one of your articles. Excuse me.
I have a question that just came up. So
Okay.
you were just saying, don't put click here and then put it as a background link. You should actually put it as spell out the link.
If you, I don't understand the question exactly. Don't put click here or read more, but if you put like SEO tips as the link and it's inserted in the article, then that's a much better link, and it can still go to the same place. But if I'm writing about SEO tips and I want to emphasize an SEO tip or dig deeper in, drill deeper into that tip, then I should include in my natural writing SEO tips, and then make that the contextual link, not for more information.
So I see. You're saying not at the end of the article, for example, or you put it as a sentence in the sentence of the rest of the article.
That's the appropriate way to do it.
So that makes more sense, because I use, click here at the end of articles from time to time, but that's only on social media.
Yeah, and social media is a little tiny bit different. If you're writing an actual blog or an article, and you include it contextually inside that article, it makes more sense. When I'm talking about drilling deeper into SEO tips, you can put, for more SEO tips, click here, or not, don't say click here, excuse me, but you can say SEO tips.
Yeah, and you highlight the words SEO tips so that it highlights them.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay. All right.
But
that was what one of our people are asking here. So, and I'm going, I didn't understand that either. So good thing. Good question.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. So when you're creating or writing this stuff, don't compete with yourself. And here's my potato chip example. So I said, say you're writing an article about potato chips. Should your focus keyword be potato chips? And then if you use a link to potato chips inside that same post, you have to consider what the value is of those other articles about potato chips. So let's hypothetically say I'm a potato chip manufacturer and I have lots of different chips. Do I have one chip that outsells all of the others? Or do I have one chip that is the best chip? Or do I have like a bunch of puffed corn chips that don't really sell well, and the potato chips that sell extremely well? So be careful on how many links you put in one article to multiple locations. You want to emphasize just your best-selling potato chip, or just your best, or the point you're trying to make. The point could be as simple as what type of salt to use on your potato chip, but then it shouldn't say more about potato chips, click here. It should say for specific mineral information or salt information or whatever. Have it click there. And there's third-party plugins, and I'll just mention one in a minute. But there's plugins that you can put on your site that check for link density. So if you have too many links per article, you generally tell that. If you have too few links to an article or from an article, you can generally tell that. So don't be afraid to use a plugin. And then Boyd and I both use this with some frequency. It's the Yoast plugin. They have a part of their plugin that will tell you that you're using too many links in an article, or you're basically every time you create a link, you're sending somebody away from that article. So you don't want too many opportunities for somebody to leave that article. Even if they're going to a different part internally or inside your own site, you don't want them to become lost or confused. So be careful and thoughtful about how you're sending people out, how you're the frequency that you're sending them off, and all of those types of things. Because just because you're a potato chip manufacturer doesn't mean that you need to get them confused or disorganized. So if you have a link, a weak link building strategy, what are things that you can do about it? And the first thing is that you should have a really natural flow. That's what I was alluding to in that last slide. There needs to be a natural progression. And, potato chips are a terrible example, and I'm not a potato chip expert, so you'll have to forgive me, but you can start with maybe growing potatoes, and then harvesting potatoes, and then slicing the potatoes, and then baking or deep frying the potatoes, and then adding salt. But you see, with all of those steps, there's a very natural progression, and you don't want to go from growing potatoes to all of a sudden adding the salt. You just skipped all of that other steps about harvesting and when potatoes are ripe, and how do you tell if they're ripe, and how do you pick them or grow or pull them or whatever it is that you do with them. So there's a lot of steps that happen in between, and if you just go from A to Z and miss all of the B, C, D, E stuff, then people are going to be lost and confused, and probably not want to continue to follow you, not want to continue to read your blogs or any of those types of things. So a good thing that I like to say about making unnatural statements or not being intuitive is, if you're trying to, and I learned this a long time ago, and I'm sure Boyd, being the expert writer that he is, if you're trying to force a sentence into the middle of a block, and I used to do this with some frequencies, so and I've learned how not to do it. But if you're trying to force a sentence into the middle of a paragraph and you just can't do it, then chances are it probably doesn't belong there. So don't force yourself to have to write something like that. I kind of like that graphic, and most people that have followed me for a long time know that my graphics tend to run off into tangents occasionally, but this one's really poignant, and it says, write without fear, but then edit without mercy. And hopefully Boyd has something to say about that, but I know his wife does a lot of his editing. So
see, I write without fear, and then I turn it over to here and cry. So what can I say?
Yeah.
No, she's not that bad. She will then say, Boyd, you're using too many, and she'll tell me what I'm doing wrong, and that's really a good thing. So yeah, I tend to use he said this, and they're going, well, which he was it?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm just using the pronouns all the time. And so she says, no, you got to put the name in there so that, at least once in there, so they'll know which he is which he, and or she or it. And I'm that's my bad, but that's the way I am. And so, but I have somebody who can really tell me how it works, and it works well.
It's interesting because a lot of times I have a preconceived notion in my head and I try and force it into an article, and usually it doesn't flow right and it doesn't sound right and it doesn't work right. And I've got somebody that used to edit my stuff, and I used to get kind of angry with them. But when I stand back and really look at the point and everything I'm trying to say, it makes sense, to have a third person look at it and have it make sense. So,
And
uh,
I was just going to say, one time I got to talk to, oh, my mind went blank of his first name, James Patterson.
Mhm.
And he was saying, you've got to understand, you write something and he says, I got this new editor, and as she's going through it, I'm going, okay, I don't like that one. Okay, I'm okay with that. And she stops him after the first about chapter, and she says, when I work with these people who write books, they fight me on every single change, and you're not. You've only made 2 things that you kind of push back. And James says, it is more important for it to make sense than it is for me to have my ego in there.
Exactly.
And that's really what it is. And especially with content going on a website, it is so more important to have it so that it reads right and people are really getting what the message is, not trying to force something into it or trying to, oh gosh, I've got to put this sentence in that this guy said. I did a business spotlight the other day for a company, and I was trying to put this sentence in, and I finally said, you know what? There is no place for it.
Mm-hmm.
And you just got to say that and walk away from that sentence. So,
yeah, that's absolutely true. And that's kind of the point here. It has to have a good flow. And if you're trying to force it, it probably doesn't belong there. So you're right on task there, Boyd. So, and all of these next 4 or 5 slides were all about what if you have a weak link strategy. So the last one was it should have a natural flow. Next, it should be a good practice for writing the link is matching the text with the page. So inside of the page, they should immediately know what to expect on the link if they click it. And remember, we're talking specifically about links. So if you've got an article about potato chips and you're talking about how to season potato chips appropriately, it should be crystal clear that if they click on the link that's inside of that sentence that's talking about how to season potato chips, that they're going to get information on salt or whatever barbecue flavoring or whatever it is you're doing, but they should immediately know what to expect when they click on that link, because the sentence or the paragraph was talking specifically about how to season that particular potato chip or that flavoring or whatever. So make sure that you do that when writing your links, that you make sure they know what to expect. Okay, thirdly, and this is very important, you should never try and trick the reader. So I loved this guy with the cigar sticking out of his mouth and trying to con you into buying that car back there. Don't surprise the reader. In the last slide, we talked about having them know what to expect. Well, if they're expecting something about seasoning your potato chip, and all of a sudden you send them off to a car dealership or someplace else, or somebody's paying for a link to have it go someplace else and it doesn't make sense, for goodness sake, don't do it. It will damage your SEO. The search engines are going to understand what's going on. Google is very, very good at this. And if you have a link and you're talking about seasoning potato chips and all of a sudden it sends them off to Joe Blow car dealership, that's not going to fly with Google. They will penalize the page. They will penalize your site. They will penalize the car dealership. There's nothing but penalties that go around in that particular scenario. So it would not be a good idea for you to try and trick them or have them go someplace else. So just avoid it. Don't do it. There's some people that monetize their sites and try and sell links or create income from links that way. But if it doesn't make sense, it's not going to fly. Lastly, it should be made really crystal clear that there's a link there. Occasionally, sometimes people try and hide their link. It's always confused me. It's never been a great idea to make your links black or make your links non-colored or make there's a variety of different things that you can do to kind of hide that. That you can make the whole page a link. I mean, there's a bunch of weird strategies that you can kind of foray off into, but the best thing that you can do is make it crystal clear that there is a link here. It does make sense. It does follow the construct of the article, and it'll be advantageous to them, more informative for them if they will click through to that link and have it make sense to you, or make sense with the article. So please have them do that, and please show that in a way that it makes sense to them. So my bonus kind of question here is, how do you make a link more valuable is a good way to state this. And the bonus is if you're writing a long focus keyword. So a long focus keyword would be learning how to make potato chips. A short keyword is potato chips, but a longer one would be learn how to make potato chips. So if you're using a long-term keyword like that and you put it all in quotes, guess what that does? Google pays particular attention to quotation and grammar and all those types of things that we like to kind of avoid. But if you put it in quotes, then Google's going to pay particular attention to it. Google's going to follow that link and make sure that it makes sense, and then actually reward that page or push that page up, or give you a little bonus for having a long-term or a long tail keyword in quotation, because that emphasizes that, it sets that keyword out, it makes that article more important. It does all of those things that push that up the pile. Potato chips is one thing, but quotations around learning how to make potato chips is a much better way to actually state that, call attention to it. It'll still be colored, it'll still have all of those other things, but it creates more attention to that long tail keyword, and you will be rewarded for it. Remember, and I'm kind of infamous or famous, I don't know which it is, for saying this, but in the Google world, there's only pain and reward, or punishment and reward. And so if you can be pushed up that pile or rewarded up that pile a little tiny bit more because you used quotations and because you used the long tail keywords that quite honestly are less sought after keywords, then you'll be rewarded accordingly. So you can have your entire keyword put into it, or in those quotes, and you'll be much better off. Okay, next, and I put this in specifically for Boyd, and that's a picture of actually Boyd's computer screen, and he's known for having a few too many tabs open. But make the most of your internal linking strategy and try not to create too many tabs or anything goofy like that. Write great content for the readers and let them know carefully what it's all about. And for this, make it relevant and helpful and useful for them. And of course, please don't spam them. Boyd, can you pick one of those tabs and open that up for us and see what's going on?
Oh, you want me to do it right now? Huh? Okay.
That's actually what Boyd's computer. I snuck into his office and opened that screen for him.
I do. I have one computer that has 6 screens open, and each screen has no less than 40 tabs open. Although I'm sorry, one of them only has 10. The rest of them have 40 or more.
That is just sad.
Well, but see, I move back and forth, and each of those screens are for different things, so
Yeah.
and so I have it organized, and I drive everybody nuts, but that's okay. My brain, it works. Your brain, I confuse you.
Yeah.
So does that mean that you get confused really easily, or is it
That's it. I get lost. Okay, so in conclusion,
I have something before you do the in conclusion.
okay.
So for links, I want to tell you something. I work with the Chamber of Commerce for South Jordan. And one of the things that I have found is people want to belong to the chamber for one reason sometimes, and that's just to be in our directory that has a link from us to them. Now, that link from us to them carries more weight than a lot of other links to them because it says that they are recognized by a chamber of commerce. Now, cities can do this. There are other groups, but it's interesting. Chambers are one of the highest, and it's right up there next to Google. So if Google has a link to you, that's your A list. This is kind of an A minus. But anybody, there's a couple of groups here in town that have these listings, and they're old yellow page companies or they're other type of companies. They're way down the list. They're sometimes C and D in their ranking of how relevant that is. But a chamber is really high. So one of the things is get onto a chamber if you can. And there are some chambers that will allow you to do a free listing. Do it. And to make sure that it has your listing of your website. And and there's others that are like Alignable. If you go onto Alignable, and there's, it's kind of a social media site too, but you can put your link there, and that is a B+ type site because it's again.
Boyd's 100% accurate, and most people don't even start to think this way. And I know we've covered it before in classes, and we'll probably cover it again. But think about the difference if you're a law firm and you get a link from the Harvard Law Review versus a link from from a
local radio station.
Exactly. If you have the Harvard Law Review, you're valuable. That's as a valuable link. That is a prized link. And if you get one from the automotive shop that we were looking, that graphic that I was showing, that has no value. So if you think about that all the links have value, and they have. There's actually a listing I get that they all are ranked, from 0 to 100, and you can buy really expensive ones and pay for them, and there's ways to get them, to get listed in some of the universities. The anything that's a .gov or a .edu, all of those
or org as well.
Yeah. So all of those have different values, and think about that. Consider that when you're linking. And there's a class that I know that I was putting together at the same time I was putting this one together, where we're going to talk about in the future just internal links versus external links, and the value of how all those work. So at any rate, Boyd's absolutely right. And you should actually consider what's the chamber they should consider.
Well, consider the local chamber to you wherever you are.
What's the one that you're the president of?
I'm the president of the South Jordan Chamber.
So we probably
so if you're in
anybody to join the South Jordan Chamber.
Oh, come join me.
Okay,
it's $15 a month. Come on, you can.
I got him to say it.
But no, I believe that you should belong always, if you can, to the local chamber. Now, some places, a regional chamber has put the local chamber out of business, and then they charge a lot of money to belong to that regional chamber. And to be honest, that doesn't carry as much weight with Google either, because now they're trying to be too big and they're trying to grab everybody. And so it's the local chamber that you want to belong to. Or another one is if there's a business alliance in the area, that is another one that's strong. There you can, and they go down from there, is the idea.
Okay. And you're the president of which chamber, Boyd? I just wanted to.
South Jordan Chamber.
Okay, I got him to say it again.
South
If I can get him
Jordan
to,
Chamber. You want me to say it more times? No,
if I
that's
can get you to say it 3 times, then I've done my job.
okay. Yeah, you got me done.
Okay. All right. So in conclusion, links help with both the search engines decide whether a site is worthy and worth following. So some people try and game the system, but don't fall into that trap. Google always is good at spotting those things. So keep it natural, relevant, and you'll always be good to go. Very quickly, there's no silver bullets in search engine optimization. You get a free gift today at SEO in 360. If you'll go there, you can get a free gift on the website
Speed test.
Yes, and that's very valuable. And that's it. Thanks.
Very cool. Thank you. Any questions from anybody in the that's listening in? I don't see any questions, but if you do, please send us an email. And if you're seeing this or hearing this on our YouTube channel, then please just send us an email. And you can send the emails to either boyd@bpmedia.com or Jim, and Jim's probably going to answer the questions better than I will on this. So Jim at e2-ts.com. Okay.
That's it, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Have a great day.
Bye.